Good morning, guys, and welcome to the show. It's Knowledge Fest 2022, Las Vegas, and no Knowledge Fest would be complete without an ARC vehicle. And today we have Fred's Ford Flex. I know what you're thinking, a Flex? This thing is one bad. You can't wait to see this. Let's go meet up with Fred and have him tell us all about it. We're here today with Fred from ARC Audio. Tell us who you are and what do you do?
So my name is Fred Lynch. I've been with ARC Audio now going on 19 years. I'm actually the international sales manager, but I also do a lot of our special projects. Do a lot of stuff with our competition team up until a few years ago when we handed everything over to Brian. And kind of a little bit of a jack of all trades. It's been a long time coming, but definitely looking forward to moving on with this company and doing cool projects like this.
A Ford Flex. Why a Ford Flex?
Talked to the wife about that one actually. Honestly, new child, had to have room for 3 kids, needed the room, and ironically this was another one of those cases of you're not going to touch the vehicle, you're not going to do an installation on it, you're not going to ruin the vehicle, we need to be able to carry groceries and a stroller, yada 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 yada.
Oh so. Yeah. Well, speaking of carrying a stroller, if you guys have ever seen one of these Ford Flexes, it's a 3-row seat monster here, and of course you can't do a stereo without bass. So we're gonna start with the bass.
One of the things about this build when I finally got the wife to let me move forward with it was we couldn't occupy any usable space, and I had to be able to do things like fold the 3rd row down, make sure that we still had all the usable operations of everything that would come with the vehicle, mainly the reasons why we bought the vehicle. So in this case, we used the spare tire well. That's what AAA is for, right? We put 3 A-Series 10s in here from ARC Audio. These are actually in a sealed enclosure at 1.3 cubic foot sealed gross. Super tiny enclosure, but super efficient. But the best part is, the seats still fold down, I still have all the cargo space, and being all the way in the back of the vehicle, I get a nice amount of additional loading that makes this thing super impressive for when I want to jam out and have that bottom end extension. There's a cover that slides right in over the top, so when you look in, there's nothing to see. It looks like a carpeted floor, just like the stock, like the stock floor would from the factory.
100% grocery getter.
Grocery getter, stroller getter, keeps the wife happy, most importantly.
Well, it's kind of loud out here, and it's going to be even louder in there, but let's head inside and you can tell us what's happening in there. But before we do that, I saw this strange glowing light coming out of this corner here.
So one of the things you're going to notice about this install is you may see the subs here without the panel on it, but if you look around in the rest of this vehicle, there's not one amplifier to be seen. The only hint you can tell is actually through the factory noise canceling subwoofer in the back. There is a little bit of a glow, and that's just one of the 3 big amplifiers that we've been able to conceal. In fact, all the amplifiers, the electronics, everything is completely concealed behind all the panels, including a lot of other cool things which we'll go over on how we enhance the air conditioning and basically temperature control for the amplifiers using the rear AC system. There's a lot of things behind the scenes, mainly to keep this thing as low-key as possible.
Everything is factory except for what I'm looking at here. I mean, this is plain Jane. I mean, if I didn't see that, I would think there's nothing in here.
One of the things about this system is we did want to make sure that was it. Of course, we had to do a little bit of a compromise in order to get the 3-way front end on it, but you know, the idea was is stock locations, keep everything concealed, keep everything OEM looking. Actually, when we built this car, my other half had given me a laundry list of different things that I had to follow, and that was one of them. Couldn't remove the factory radio, had to keep everything in the stock location, had to keep everything OEM looking. The only exception she gave me was being able to replace and build out the pillars, and I had to have if this had to go back to stock, I could put this back to stock for less than about 200 bucks, and that's exactly what we've done here.
You bought an extra set of A-pillars.
I bought an extra set of A-pillars. So.
What series do we have in there?
So what we've got in here is we have a ARC Audio RS 1.0 and RS 3.0. Tweeter's obviously standalone, but the actual speaker itself is in a vented pillar that goes down into the actual dashboard, and then it's coupled down in the bottom. The whole thing's dampened. Basically, it's a semi-sealed tuned enclosure. I know that sounds like a catch-22 on there, but we did play with the dampening on there to achieve a certain resonance out of the drivers and be able to optimize the performance for such a small format.
I would expect nothing less from you guys. I mean, let's be honest. You guys all kind of there's this, and then we're just gonna go farther.
Well, go big or go home, you know.
Well, this ain't go big. You were like, we're gonna go big, but you're not gonna know.
Yeah, well, you know, it's like, here it is. What'd we do?
which is cool.
Besides that, we also worked with the stock location. So this vehicle came stock with 6x9s in the door to work with the tweeter up top from the factory system, which is part of the Sony sync system. We've actually rebuilt them. It's on a stack fab acrylic, or not acrylic, but it's a ABS plexi stack fab that Brian did for me on his laser. And what we ended up doing is we've actually got 8s in the doors. So we're running an 8-3 tweak combo up in the front of this vehicle. And the 8s are actually all built. Of course, the doors are dynamatted galore. We had to really reinforce the doors on this because there wasn't a lot of dampening in this vehicle.
I was gonna say, you said there's like 500 pounds.
We're about 500 pounds of sound dampening in here on there. There's, I mean, if you look at dampening wise on there, there's equivalent to about a box and a half or master pack and a half of Dynamatic Stream in each door, front and rear. The whole roof is 3 layers of Extreme plus also a 1/2-inch Dyna liner, the foam up top, and then we've got Dyna pad down in the floor. The whole thing's coated front to rear, every square inch, including the firewall. Like I say, it was 400 and something pounds. I forget what we weighed the difference on it, but we did that before we actually put all the system into it though too.
The funny thing is, as I said, it's loud outside, and I can hear the ringing in my ears when I'm in here. I'm like, it's almost annoying because it's that quiet. It's just like, it's dude, this is.
It's funny, you get other Flex owners sitting in here and they're like, all right, what did you do? Mine's not this quiet at all.
Oh no, this is really,
so,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and of course, gas mileage came at a compromise, but you know, but it's, hey, at least it's comfortable, it's quiet, and highway miles are great on this thing. So
let's keep moving back.
From here, we are also using the stock locations in the rear doors. So we actually have a ARC Series 602 coaxial that we're running actively there as well too, because the tweeter and the mid-range are actually separate. And then so moving all the way back to the D pillars, there's also a set of RS3s up in the D pillar locations. There's also a RS3 and an RS 1.0 up in the center channel location, which we're using strictly for navigation prompts, cell phone communications, and you know, the active auxiliary audio.
Nice.
So beyond there, in the back corner behind the panel, we have 3 ARC Series 1000.6s. So we have a total of 18 channels open and available to us. We're using this configuration in a 15-channel configuration in this vehicle. The best part is the whole thing is actively controlled. Now you're like, how? Because that technology doesn't necessarily exist when you're using an OEM radio. Most people do high to lows, or they'll use a pack adapter or something like that. One of the things about the Sony radio is it's called active output. If you pull the factory amplifier and just try to hook up a stereo and use the volume control, it's not going to do anything. So we actually partnered up with iData Maestro, which iData Maestro, there's a lot of companies out there that have integration capability, but they're limited to a single processor. One thing that makes this system extremely unique right now is we actually developed a co-platform with iData Maestro for our DSP technology, to where we can run multiple AR units, or which is their amplifier replacement data module, and multiple DSPs. So in the case of this vehicle right now, we're running 3 of our IPS 8.8s with 3 iData AR modules, all in series, and they're all actively controlling the audio via the data bus. So all the CAN bus controls, including reallocation of things like speed sensitive volume control or volume network control, has been reallocated for presets. The base level control used for tone controls has been reallocated in the system for sub bass only. I've also reallocated the tweeter and the mid-range controls for other functions in here. All the fader controls work. Everything works just like 100% OEM system. Steering wheel controls, all the controls up on the radio. The vehicle doesn't know any better. It still thinks the factory system's in here, and we're using 100% of all the locations fully active, and every channel has full DSP tuning capabilities through our Pro Series DSP platform.
Sounds like my kind of system, I'm not gonna lie. So you have no bass knob then?
No bass knob. Everything's done through the radio itself.
Are the Do you have the controllers for the DSPs or no?
I don't need it. The way I control the DSP,
lights.
the way when I do it's pretty lights and everything, but it would have involved me cutting a hole in the dash.
And she was not having that.
She was not having that. And I can tell you right now, the center console pieces in this car are a hell of a lot more money than the A-pillars are.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, in the case of this thing, I just go into the sound button and speed compensated volume. That's my presets. Presets 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I can do everything from 2-channel, front stage only, sound quality, competition style audio, to a street tune. I could also do all 15 channels, either SQ or SQL. I even use the high one, which is my preset 4, to showcase why we use DSPs, so we can let people hear what the value of a DSP is and what it can do to the environment, literally by turning all the EQ, delay, everything except for basic safety crossovers on and off in a system, so you can hear the benefit to putting DSPs in a vehicle.
I like the term basic safety crossover settings.
Yeah, well, none of us like the blow up speakers. So
no, but that's a great way to describe it for sure. I mean, that's okay. I like that.
But there's a lot of, like I say, there's a lot of technology in here. They're going back to the 3-arc 1000.6s. Each one has an IPS 8.8 into it. Even the subs themselves, the 3 subs, are actively driven on their own dedicated channels off of their own 1000.6. Like anything else, a lot of people have issues tuning even basic two-way systems, let alone, you know, three layers of information from multiple distance plus subs at 15 channels active. So it's one of those things where, you know, it definitely is going to take tuners who know what they're doing in order to be able to do a system like this.
Now with your DSP, you can toggle between the 3 DSPs in the same software.
Correct. So what I did is I've actually got, I have multiple 20-foot USB cables, single piece USB cables, no extensions or anything, and they're running all the way routed through the car up to the center console. And in the center console, there is a non-amplified USB hub. And then what I did is there is a USB-C port on that hub that's been removed, and then it's hard cabled up to a connector in the center console. So now all I do is when I get my computer, I plug in a standard old school USB to USB 6-foot cable. I plug it in right there. I can control all 3 DSPs through my laptop at one time while I'm tuning on all of them.
Speaking of the wiring that you just talked about for just the USB cables, telling me about what you did with the factory harness.
Yeah, so wiring is an area that's been kind of call it an OCD for me. You know, just like any system, there's, especially with Class D amplifiers, there's always a bad rap that people say you can't get performance and sound out of a Class D system without noise. In a lot of cases, most of it's because of the wiring that's involved in a factory system. Well, because we wanted to showcase the AR Maestro using even the Maestro plug-and-play harness, one of the things that we did was we basically gutted this whole vehicle front to rear, and like even the factory wiring that goes from the radio back to the amplifier, it's just basically 2 pieces of wire wrapped up in some, you know, tape here and there. So we actually depinned the harness in the back, marked everything, turned around and did twisted pair, replaced the conductor actually with a true OFC because they had used some CCA in it.
Really?
And it was weird. There was actually a decent amount of inductance on the cables, so we repinned it with full OFC cable, twisted pair, and then shield jacketed it, and everything's done in directional pattern, so it's grounded on one end for optimal isolation. Put everything back in, removed all the we removed all the really thin 22 gauge speaker wire as well, and then repinned it with the maximum that we can get in, which on certain plugs was 16 gauge and other ones were 18 gauge. Put in twisted pair all the way back into the harness, and then re-lume the whole thing back up front to rear. So everything is in its OEM condition, but with the upgraded wire, it's optimized for isolation, optimized for noise reduction, and so on. I mean, we even went in through the parts for like the CompuStar alarm and the all the additional interface modules and the K40 alarm. All the modules for everything in this car are all mounted on custom-made aluminum brackets, bolted up to the factory points. They're all serviceable locations. But one thing we had to make sure with a lot of these systems is you're either cutting harnesses or you're uninstalling a system in order to do any service if it has to go back to the dealer.
Correct.
In the case of what we've done on this is we put everything in there, and on those modules, because it's not factory, there's little tags with a QR code on there, and you can scan the QR code and it actually goes to to a little page that'll display on their phone or whatever they're using, and actually referred back to the OEM repair manual. And so if, like, say if they have to pull the dash and they start running into these cards, that card now has a step. So instead of it being like, say, page 46, section 2, step A, step 1, now it's 1A. And so do this in this series, blah, blah, blah. So we're telling the techs, if they want to scan them, how they can unplug and remove the dash in a single piece without having to uninstall or cut harnesses or screw up anything we've done, as well as how to put everything back together.
You can tell him and Brian work together.
Brian has his own level of OCD. I have mine. So, and I will say, we've both taken cues from each other, but the QR code, I will fully admit, I took that from him. So.
We use a lot of AR. We've done a lot of work with them, but I've always only used one AR module. Why are you using 3?
Traditionally, AR is a phenomenal component. It's an awesome technology, but like you said, you usually use one. And because we have that unique product identifier system in our DSPs, we have the ability to uniquely name everything within a digital domain. So what we've done in here with what we call multi-AR, AR actually has a pink port that's on the side of their AR unit, and that pink port is usually never used. That's actually an engineering and manufacturing port. It's what they use for flash programming and things like that when they need to. What they did for us is they reallocated that port now as a two-way communication port. So what happens now is, instead of going online, plugging in via USB and programming just whatever vehicle you need, you give them a call up and say, hey, I'm doing a 2019 Ford Flex and I'm doing a multi-AR system in it. And they said, okay, hold on a second. What's your account? What's your email address? And they'll actually email you a revised version of the vehicle firmware that now takes that first module and turns that into an output, so it communicates with other modules. They will also send you a secondary AR, which you can load this into as many secondary modules as you want. So if you can run anywhere from 1 to 100 AR modules now, and every one of those can be hooked up to an individual DSP. So you can think about it this way: if you have like a Cadillac with a 25 channel audio, 25 channel system in it, you can run 3 or 4 DSPs in it now, have a full 24 channel system in it, or even higher if you want to expand off of it, and all you're doing is using those pink ports to connect on it. And at that point, all you do is run your constant voltage out signal out of the radio into the inputs of every one of your amplifiers or into every one of your DSPs, and Maestro takes over all the controls. So complete expandable opportunity versus now going, all right, Mr. Customer, yes, you have a 15 channel audio system on there, but I can only give you 8. So instead of having complete tuning capability, we're going to have to put passive crossovers between your mid and tweet now. And we're going to have to put a coaxial where there was a component system, and we're going to have to do this and this and this, and go from digital out here to an amplifier to using a Y connector to go out to another amp and using onboard crossovers. Forget all that. You can do this now. Everything now is at your computer, so you can truly customize the listening experience for the customer based on how they listen to the music, how they want to listen to it, what their listening experience requires, and it's all at your fingertips now.
Now, I know we're talking about DSP, and everyone is always fascinated by DSP, and they always ask what's the best DSP to use. As we say before, head over to arcaudio.com, download the DSP software. You can play with it, see what it's like. If you can wrap your head around it, by all means, they make awesome DSPs. Now, with all the DSP goodness that this car has, is it time to listen to it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's jam out, man. I love these cars.
See, I don't talk dog, but she told on me, oh wait.
As far as grocery getters go, this is definitely the best sounding grocery getter you're gonna find. Holy crap, man, this thing sounds awesome.
Thank you.
You know, we get the opportunity to listen to a lot of your guys' cars, and it's never disappointing. These RS components that you guys make are absolutely phenomenal. It almost seems like it's not fair. Yeah. So.
You know what though, in all respects though, there's a lot of great products on the market. We do what we think is right. We try to make things based upon music and creating that emotional experience. But just like anything else, you can put the best components in the world into a vehicle, and especially when it comes to why we have DSPs, you have to learn how to use the DSP, you have to learn how to tune, because you can put the best foundation in the world, but you can still build a skyscraper on top of it and have it come tumbling down a month later. It takes experience.
Thankfully for you, you only use 3 DSPs instead of 4. Well, Fred, thank you so much for taking time out of the busy schedule we have this weekend to give us a tour of this. If you guys would like to learn anything more about Arc Audio, head over to their website, check them out. There's a dealer locator there.
Yep.
Type in your address, see if you can find one near you. And if they have a test car, go listen to it. If not, you know, you can find these guys in like competition circuit. I mean, they do okay. I mean,
yeah, every now and then we get a trophy.
yeah, every now and then. I mean, whatever. All right, guys. You guys have a great night as always. We'll see you later next time. Bye.
See ya.